Let's focus on the local team right down the street. The Vegas Golden Knights are currently knotted at 1 in a very good opening round series with the Minnesota Wild. Vegas still has Vegas as the minus 170 favorite to win this series. What's the likelihood, in your opinion, of an upset here?
The Minnesota Wild have been playing very well. In particular, Ryan Hartman has been a fantastic player. All eyes will be on Kirill Kaprizov, of course, the Calder Trophy shoe-in in the eyes of many. He is a dynamite player on the ice. And Minnesota definitely has some weapons, and Cam Talbot has been solid in net for Minnesota. However, it's the other guy on the other side of that 200-foot ice that I'm looking at, Marc-Andre Fleury. Game 2 could have slipped away from Vegas, but it was, I think, 17 shots by Minnesota in the first period, and Marc-Andre Fleury was solid. And just remember that first game, both goaltenders were riding a shutout going into overtime, and it was an errant puck off the skate of Martinez that caused the goal that beat Fleury finally for Minnesota to win that game. And VGK looked really good in the second and third period in Game 2. So I do believe that with Marc-Andre Fleury playing in that elite status, that Stanley Cup championship winning status that we have known him to be and do, Vegas could definitely get out of this series. So I would answer your question directly. A little less likely than the Habs beating the Leafs, I would say Vegas is in good shape here.
All right, Arda, let's stay out west. The Colorado Avalanche, the best team during the regular season. They've looked awesome through 2 games at home against my St. Louis Blues. You know, they've done a great job, the Blues, keeping Nathan MacKinnon in check. He's only scored 5 goals in 2 games. Big reason why the Avs are plus 130 to make it to the Stanley Cup Finals. Favorites ever since these odds have been released. Is there anyone in this field in the entire postseason you think can knock off the Avs, or who would be the toughest test should Colorado meet them?
Tyler, you've seen a Stanley Cup in your lifetime. What's that like?
It was beautiful. It took a long time. It was beautiful, though. It was a beautiful. And you know what? I have equity now, so I can't even be mad if they get swept out of this postseason by the Avs.
I will say that the Colorado Avalanche, they are as advertised. They are the team. Them and Vegas were really the 2 teams that people were talking about meeting in the West, getting out of the West. But honestly, I'm looking at the stars. I'm looking at Nathan MacKinnon. I'm looking at Mikko Rantanen. I'm looking at Gabriel Landeskog, and they are the top 3 of 4 atop the playoff standings. And honestly, you would expect other names in there as well, like Connor McDavid and soon to be Austin Matthews once that series begins. But right now, it is dominated by the Colorado Avalanche. They have played terrific. They have had sound victories in their series against St. Louis so far. And you could see, if you were to pick one series right now that would be an outright sweep in the first round, you'd probably look at the Colorado Avalanche. So which team am I looking at to contend against them? Vegas is, see, if these 2 teams were in different conferences and if we were in different situations, a lot of people would have selected those 2 to meet in the Stanley Cup Finals. But we're going to get that series very likely sooner than later.
Okay, behind the Avs are 4 Eastern Conference teams who have the next best odds to reach the Cup Final. All right, there won't be an Eastern Conference champion this year with the playoff format that's been realigned due to the pandemic and everything else. But that being said, who among the traditional Eastern Conference teams do you like to reach the final?
I'm looking at those odds on screen, and I absolutely love the Boston Bruins at plus 350. I love that because I do believe that the Bruins have a really, really good chance of making the Stanley Cup Final. I think one name we should all be looking at on that team is Taylor Hall. I covered the New Jersey Devils extensively when Taylor Hall literally dragged the Devils' carcass to the Stanley Cup playoffs in 2018. He was the reason. He won the Hart Trophy, the MVP that year. He was literally the singular focused reason why the Devils made the postseason. And I see that same fire from him on the Bruins since he got traded from the Buffalo Sabres to Boston. The difference is he doesn't have the same spotlight on him. The Bruins already have the best line in hockey in Pasternak, Marchand. That line is absolutely wonderful, and he's playing with Krejci on the second line. and Bergeron, I should say, on the first line there. Taylor Hall doesn't have the same spotlight that he has had on other teams. He can fly under the radar and have magnificent goals like he did in the last game. It was like, that's the all-star that people remember. And if he continues that pace, I would even say if the Bruins make the Stanley Cup final and he plays at this pace and contributes, he's got 2 goals in 3 games right now, you could even put him into the Conn Smythe conversation at that time.
I'm glad you mentioned the Conn Smythe and the aforementioned Avalanche we were discussing as Cup favorites. One of their superstars, Nathan MacKinnon, who again has been held to a scant 5 goals in just 2 games against my St. Louis Blues. He is the favorite to win the Conn Smythe right now at 5-1. Is there anyone else you think can challenge MacKinnon once the cup is lifted for the Conn Smythe trophy?
So I love picking the hipster picks. Like, I'm definitely the guy that's like, I'm not going to go favorite on the Conn Smythe trophy. Give me the grinders. Like, I love the years when the opposing goaltender on the losing team wins the Conn Smythe trophy, like J.S. Jaguar and Ron Hextall when they won, even though their team didn't win because they had such fantastic performances, right? So now what I'm going to say is with the Colorado Avalanche, I would even sprinkle or consider sprinkling some money on like a Mikko Rantanen, who is at the top of the tables. Players like that, when they far exceed your expectations, especially when their team makes the Stanley Cup final, they're going to get a lot of Conn Smythe consideration, especially if the star players aren't performing to what you believe to be their ceiling. And that does happen sometimes. We just saw it with Connor McDavid and Leon Draisaitl in Game 1. They were left off the score sheet, which rarely happened in the regular season. And so look at those kind of players. And again, I'll go back to Boston. Taylor Hall is a perfect example of that. Yes, you have stars like Marchand and Bergeron and Pasternak and even Krejci on his line, but Taylor Hall is playing so well that he could be in that conversation and might even have a very high line. If you look at it, say, in a week from now, it might continue to be the case. So I would look for players like that.
Check him out on In the Crease on ESPN+. Arda Ocal, kind enough to join us here on Bet. Arda, that was awesome, man. Thank you so much.
Thanks for having me.
Thanks for watching ESPN on YouTube. For live streaming sports and premium content, subscribe to ESPN+.